One of the challenges I find, especially with training people a lot, is your initial impressions of how a device is used is often formed by the first couple of years you use something. And for those of us who've been using an iPad since 2010, most people really think of the iPad as a consumption device. You know, you browse the web, you read emails, you watch movies, you might go into Facebook, do stuff like that. But in terms of a computing device, well, not so much. Some people do use it. Some people use it exclusively as their sole computing device. But one of the things that is really relevant about the Files app and where we're going today and where I'm going with this is that originally the design ethos of the iPad was to simplify the experience. So you would never see a document that didn't belong to an app outside of that app. So basically, all of the Keynote, all your presentations lived inside your Keynote app or inside your PowerPoint app. All your word processing docs lived inside your Word app or your Pages app. You would never open up Excel and see a word processing doc or a picture. So the file structure and the ability to find your files was much simpler, and it made it much easier for most people to use a device like this, which made the iPad so popular. But as the iPad got more and more powerful and the internet got more and more powerful and we got fiber and all that sort of good stuff, your files may live anywhere. So over the years, Apple have evolved the operating system to have a file structure. And just like we have a Finder on the Mac and a Windows Explorer on a PC, we now have a file browser that we can use to manipulate our files and access them wherever they are. So really, the Files app is the core to having a really functional computing experience on your iPad. So let me share my screen, and we'll start right into the Files app. So here's my iPad. And just a couple of little reminders. So the Files app is in the dock here at the bottom. You can see this over here. And I can access the files that I've been working on recently without even opening up the Files app. If I press and hold on the Files app, I will get the most recent 4 documents that I've been working with. So this is a Keynote document. This is a Pages document. That's a Pages document. So these are the recent 4. And if I click on this little side arrow, this is a numbers document, this is an image, this is a PDF, and I can access the last 15 or so documents I've used without even opening up the Files app. So if you've not known that you could do this already, this is a much quicker experience. If you have a file that you've worked on the last couple of days, easily find it just by pressing and holding on the Files app in the dock or on your desktop. But I'm going to open up the Files app, and the design is slightly different on the Files app. So historically, we used to have access to our locations along the bottom, which took up some screen real estate. And Apple have designed iPadOS with this unified sidebar. So if I was to open, for example, music, you'll see we have a sidebar. So the experience when you move from app to app to app is very, very similar. If I go to the Photos app, we have a sidebar, and they're often identified by color. So your music was red, the Photos app is blue, Numbers is green, and so on. So you can very much tell at a glance what app you're in. So let's go back to Files. And currently, I'm looking at the Recents folder, if you like. It's not really a folder. It's just all the documents I've opened up recently. And you saw those first 4 were the 4 that you saw when I pressed and held down on the icon in the dock. And here are all the remaining ones. But these are all the documents that I've been working on in reverse chronological order, going back as long as you want. In fact, some of them aren't so recent anymore. I can hide and show the sidebar by clicking on the little icon in the top hand to give me more screen real estate if I want to, and we'll show it again. And when I'm inside the actual folder that I'm looking at, I can view my information in a variety of different ways. So at the moment, I'm looking at it in icon view. If I click here, I can say show it in list view. If I click, or if I'm using my finger, I'm using a mouse, by the way, to control the screen, which is how you can see the little icon or the cursor on the screen. But if I was using my finger, I would just press and hold, which I've just done now, and it's exactly the same thing as clicking on it with the mouse. So I can view it as a list, and I can view it as columns. And the difference between viewing an icon and list is very obvious. You get a preview of the document. In list view, you've got more space for the text. And column view works just like column view on the Mac, in as much as you get multiple columns. So if I was to go into something like iCloud Drive, and I'm in column view over here, I could go to Digicape iCloud, and I could see all the folders as I go down the hierarchy. And when I get to a point where I've got a document that I want to look at, let's say take this guy over here, I get a overview of that document. I can see a bit more information of it. This is a PDF. It's 2.6 meg when it was created, when it was modified, and whether it has any tags associated with it. So this is very much like going to a document inside the Mac in column view and switching on the preview pane, or selecting the document on your Mac and doing a get info. All the metadata that's associated with it will appear over here. Let's go back to my recents over here and switch back to, say, list view. And now if I click and hold on this, as well as viewing it in different views, I can also sort them differently. So here I can sort it by name. I can sort it by date. And by the way, if I select date again, at the moment it's selecting from recent, most recent to least recent. If I click again, it reverses the sort order. So now this is from the oldest to the newest. So this is the very oldest ones. That would be 30th of March. If I click on the date again, the most recent one today at 12:38, prepping for this session. So I can do that for everything here. Name can be A to Z or Z to A. I can sort them by size. I can sort them by kind. So this would group PDFs together, keynote presentations together, etc., etc. And I can also sort by tags. Now, tags are something that I just want to spend a few seconds on, because tags are actually quite an important part of the experience of using your iPad or your Mac or any contemporary computer system. The reason I say that is, at the moment down the sidebar, I'm looking at all the recent files that I've accessed. If you look over here, you'll see some of them are on iCloud Drive. Some of them might be local. Some of them might have been shared by somebody else on me. You see this one's been modified by Gaynor. This file here is sitting on Box, which is an online service like Dropbox or Google Drive. So this one's on my iPad. It's resident on my iPad, and I'll get into that in a moment. And one of the things that makes this experience so successful is that I can add all sorts of locations to my sidebar. So these are my recent files. I'll skip this for the moment. If I click on iCloud Drive, it shows me all of the folders that I have in iCloud. If I was to open that same folder on my Mac, you'd see exactly the same thing. If I click on OneDrive, here are my files on OneDrive. If I click on Box, here are the folders and files I've got on Box. You can see that file was the one that I showed you a little bit earlier. Here's my Google Drive. And if I wasn't logged on to my Google Drive at the moment, if I had Google Drive installed on my iPad, when I clicked on Google Drive on the sidebar, it would ask me to log in. I've done that already. I don't particularly want to go through the schlep of putting my username and password and doing all the authentication. So I've prepped all of this already. So the thing about that is, though, is that if I want to access files, I kind of have to know where that file lives. But there is a way of circumventing that. So what I want to do at the moment is click on tags, and you'll see down here I have a variety of tags. You've got your default red, orange, yellow, green, blue, and I can change the names. But if I wanted to find all of the files that were tagged by a certain keyword that lived on every drive that I had, whether it was an external drive, or it was Google Drive, or it was Box, or it was resident on my iPad, I can tag them to do that. So I've tagged a number of files as artwork. So you can see over here, this is actually on, I happen to know that this is on my OneDrive, our Microsoft OneDrive. This is on my iCloud drive. So if I wanted to, for example, go to, let's say, let's take a folder on iCloud drive, and I wanted that to appear in a particular tag. I could say, go to my EPUBs and right click on it and click on tags. And here I've got the tags. So I can add a new tag, but just for the purposes of this demo, I'm going to click artwork. Right, it's got a tick box next to it. So that is, I'm sorting by tags at the moment, so it's going up to the top. I can change that. Let me just go back to sorting these by name. If I go to tags and click artwork, everything that's tagged with the artwork tag appears in that location. So this was in iCloud Drive, as you know. This is inside my Microsoft Drive, and so on. This is local. So I can literally gather in files that are in all different locations, whether it's Google Drive, iCloud, Box, external hard drives, and so on, and bring them all into a single folder. And then when I'm finished with those files, I can just go to tags and I can uncheck it, and you'll see it'll disappear from this tag. So I really do encourage you to look at tags, whether it's on your Mac or whether it's on your iPad or on your iPhone, if you want to quickly find files that are split across a whole bunch of different locations. Because the biggest challenge I've ever had is building a file structure. What works for me doesn't work for somebody else. And, do I make my folders which are date-based or client-based or subject-based? But with tags, it doesn't really matter, because if I tag them properly, they will always appear in the appropriate location. So a little bit of a digression there, but I think it's quite useful. So I'm just going to show you a couple of tricks that you can do now if you want to select multiple things on the iPad. So I'm going to go into my OneDrive, and I'm going to go into the shared folder, and you'll see there's a whole bunch of artwork over here, and here are some of the icons that you saw previously. Now, if I wanted to select a bunch of these, I could click select, and then I could click, 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 click. I'm just going to deselect them at the moment, because if you're using your fingers and you're not using a mouse, I could take 2 fingers and just swipe across a row, and you see how it automatically puts me into select mode. Let's take another bunch of them over here. So now I've got 10 items selected. Let me pick them up. Now, do you see it tells me that I have 10 items? I'm now going to go down to tags, and I'm going to drop it on top of the artwork tag. These have all been now tagged with the word artwork. There we go. All of those files that I've tagged are in here. And these files have all come from different people. They're shared files. They're files that are local. So tagging, absolutely super useful. And it doesn't do anything to the file structure of your system. It doesn't move them anywhere. It just makes them surface, just in the same ways that when you're in recents over here, it sorts them by most recent, and you can find the files that you were working on most recently. So going back to our different views, if I right click on one of these files, you can see that there's a number of things that I can do. I can copy, I can duplicate, I can move them to other folders. You've seen how I can drag and drop between different locations. So I could drag this into OneDrive, and if I wait for a second, it opens it up. If I wait for a second, it opens it up. So we have the same sort of spring-loaded functionality that we had on the Mac. I don't know whether you know that you've got spring loading, but if you drag a file onto a folder and you hold it for a second or two, it'll pop open, and you can keep on going down the hierarchy just by holding while it goes down the hierarchy. So that's pretty nice, but sometimes it's a little awkward to do that. So one of the things we can do is we can open up a second window. And now I have 2 windows side by side, just like on my computer. And I can go on this one, we're in OneDrive. On this one, we're in iCloud Drive. And if I wanted to say go into the Apple folder, and I wanted to select these 4 files, I could pick these guys up. I could drag them across, and they would copy across to the other drive. So very easy to copy files between locations. But the thing that I wanted to show you in particular is that when we right click on these things, we do have things that we can do. You saw we can copy, move, delete. We can get more info. I can do a quick look, just like on the Mac, where I can do a preview of this file. I can tag it, as you've just seen. I can rename it. I can share it with other people. I can open it in its file. And this is the same whether I'm in icon view or I'm in list view. Same thing. But there's a really nice feature if you're using the column view. So I'm going to go back to my recents in column view and choose this leopard. Now, with column view, as I said, you get a preview of the file, but there's a couple of extra actions. Now, some of you may have seen some of the things that we've done with markup on the iPad or on macOS, that you can run workflows. But here I can actually mark up this file. I can rotate it without actually having to open up the file. You can see I'm just clicking, rotating, rotating, rotating. Let's get it back the right way. I can convert it into a PDF. But as you may have seen in some of the previous demos we've done, Apple has designed this functionality which will allow you to extend the operating system with plugins and workflows. And these things basically add themselves automatically when you install the apps. So I thought this one was quite a nice one to show. I'm going to click on the ellipsis, and you've got the same items you had before, but look now what you've got. You can save the image, you can assign it to a contact, you could print it, you could share it in the cloud. And this is the one that I find particularly interesting. I have an app called Seeing AI. Now, I think it's a Microsoft app, and it works with your camera. So if you're blind or have very low vision, you can hold your camera up in front of a document or a bottle or something, and it will tell you what it is. So we've got a picture of the leopard that I'm selecting. So let's see what it does.
Processing.
Probably a leopard with a white background. Now, if you've turned on text-to-speech, if you're a blind person, you can open up the document, get the file. It tells you what it is. And this is, we look at artificial intelligence or machine learning and think of all the scary things that can happen. But the fact that something like that is on a simple device like this opens up so many possibilities in the service of normal people like yourself and myself. So I think this is really wonderful. And if you are interested to see what some of the apps that you've actually got installed will do, here's a nice one: get images from a page. So if this is a web location and you click on it, it will download all the pictures that are on that page. You could clip this to notes, you could append it. If it's a web page, you can edit the web page. You can literally go in and edit the web page. Obviously, it doesn't change on the website, but you can make changes to the local file that you've saved. So that's some of the power of using the Files app. So let's see what else we can do in the sidebar. So you've seen that we've got our files. These are any document that's been shared to me. So using iCloud file sharing, these files have been shared, iCloud file sharing or OneDrive or Google Drive. These are all files that have been shared either by me, by other people. So if somebody's shared files with me, I don't necessarily have to go all the way down to the folder that I thought it was in. I just come to shared documents, and then I can have a look and see what's there. Basically, have all the shared documents in a single location. We've got favorites. If there are folders that we use on a regular basis, we can put them there. So if I go, for example, to the iCloud drive and I've got, let's say, the GarageBand stuff for iOS that I access all the time, I can access it in a couple of ways. I can just take this and drag it into the sidebar, and now it's in my favorites. And if I click on that, it takes me straight to all my GarageBand files. If I want to remove it, I can just right click on it again and I can unfavorite it. So the reverse of that is if I'm not that dexterous and I'm not good at dragging and dropping, I can right click on it, favorite it, and now it appears in my sidebar. Let's just remove that for the moment because I don't necessarily want it there. Unfavorite it. Okay. Now, configuring our sidebar. Over here, I have a server, which is a media server. If I click on the More button over here, there's a couple of extra things that I can do. Now, if you remember, one of the very first sessions we ever ran was how to scan documents onto your Mac, and you don't have a scanner. We used the iPhone, we used the iPad. But you typically went into notes and scanned it, or you went into your app. Here, I can actually scan documents and scan them straight into the location that I want to. So if I wanted to go to, say, on my iPad, and let's just go to a demo over here, I could say, okay, scan a document. It'll turn on the camera. Let's just take, this is going to be a little bit clumsy, but I'm going to hold this up over here. You can see that. Come on, it's a little bit dark over here, so this is not absolutely the best environment, but let's just do that anyway. It should automatically find the edges of the document, but it's a little dark in here and I'm too close to the edges. That's fine. Let's just leave that. Let's just keep the scan and say save. And there's that document straight onto my iPad. I can now open it up. I can send it to PDF Expert. I can mark it up. So a reasonably poor demo, but my little environment that I'm sitting in at the moment is kind of restrictive with all the Macs and all the cameras that I've got set up in order to broadcast this. So that's one thing we can do. We can scan directly onto our iPad just by using the camera.
The next thing I'd like to look at is how we connect our iPad to a remote server. We can connect the iPad to file servers on the internet or on a local network. I've got a couple of machines here on my network which have been set up as servers. So how do we do that? To connect to the server, we click on the More button with the ellipses over here, and you can see we have the option to connect to the server. You can see I've got a couple of servers that I connect to. It's remembered them. So I'm just going to enter the address of that server, click connect, and now it's going to prompt me for a username and a password. So let's type that in and enter. And there we are. We're connected to the server. So, and it remembers it in my sidebar. So here are the folders that I've got access to. So if I open up Home Ents, you'll see it's normal Mac Home folder. If I go into Documents, there's a bunch of folders there. So let's copy, let's say, the newsletter artwork to my local machine. So I'm just going to open up another window. And let's say I want to pop it into a folder on my iPad. So let's go to Files Demo over here. And I can just pick up this file, drop it into the folder, and you'll see it's copied across. No problem at all. So that's how we connect to a file server. Let's just close this guy up. And now anytime, if I'm disconnected from it, anytime I want to go in, it's in my sidebar, just tap on it and it will prompt me for my username and password, and I'll log in. So you can connect to a server locally on your local network, or if you have the address of a server that's somewhere on the internet, you can absolutely connect to that server and copy files backwards and forwards, just as if they were attached to your machine.
Right. What else can we do? Well, external storage. So I've got a couple of memory sticks over here. I've got two little USB sticks over here. I've got an iPad Pro, so it's got the USB-C port, and you can get USB-C sticks. This is a traditional USB, so I've got a little dock with USB ports on it. And if I take this and connect it to the dock, in a second or two, we should get, there we go. There's the USB stick. And there's some files on there, and I can drag them and drop them to my computer. Now, the reason why I've got two USB sticks over here is that the iPad understands quite a few formats. It understands, obviously, the old Mac file format, which was HFS Plus. It understands FAT32, which is Windows. It understands NTFS, but only in read mode. So if you have a stick that's from a Windows user, you can plug it in, you can copy from it. But Apple have this new file structure called APFS. So if you're running Catalina, or if you're running, if you were running Mojave, and almost certainly with Big Sur when it comes out, your hard drive, whether you know it or not, will be converted to this new format. And one of the things that you can do when you format things in APFS is you can encrypt them, you can password protect them. So this little memory stick I erased and I gave it password protection. So I'm going to take this guy and plug it in. And just like the other one, it's going to pop up in my sidebar. There we go, USB drive. But when I click on it, to view the items in this folder, I need to unlock it. So I click unlock, and I'll type the password. And there you go. There are the files that are inside there. And now I can do exactly what I was doing before. Let's open this up as a separate window. Some of these files are pretty big. So I'm just going to take this file, drag and drop it across. And we should see that to start copy, and I'll get a progress bar telling me how long that's going to be. Now, one of the downsides of this is that the progress bar we see is the little rotating wheel, and there we go. It's starting to go, and you can see, it's because I copied to an iCloud drive, so it's starting to upload. The problem is now is if I switch to another app, there's no progress bar. So I suspect, I'd like to think that Apple know about this. It'd be nice to have like a little progress bar that went across the top of the screen, or if you went to the dock, maybe the Files app would have a little progress bar across so you could see when these files are done, but we don't have it like that at the moment. That's just not one of the opportunities that we've got. Okay, I have an external hard drive, just a normal USB drive. So I'm going to take this out, plug in my USB drive, and let's just close this guy up. And in a second or two, maybe a little bit more than a second or two, this drive should spin up. So I'm going to wait for that to spin up. It's very quiet. Oh, there we go, FCP scratch. There's my hard drive. And I can click on the files, I can copy files to it, I can copy files from it. So for everybody who was sort of complaining that the iPad was really just a closed environment where you could only airdrop things, you could only get files from the internet, you can connect USB sticks, you can connect hard drives. Why you'd want to do that when you've got fiber internet and why you need to do it? Well, it's nice to be able to do it. I don't think it's essential in this mobile world, but it's doable. The last thing I want to show you as we're coming to the end of the session is how this file browser manifests itself inside apps. Because, when you've got a save dialog box on your Mac, it really does mimic a Finder window. Anything you put in the sidebar in the Finder appears in the sidebar in your open and save dialog boxes. So let's have a look. Let's go to Keynote. And I've got a file over here. So I'm going to just go back to my presentations, and we're inside Keynote. We're not in the file browser, but everything that you saw before, there's my hard drive, there's my favorites that you saw before, there's all my shared files, there's my tags, they all appear in the sidebar. So I can navigate through the hierarchy from inside an app in exactly the same way I did before. The only difference is that when I click on Recents, all the recent files will be Keynote files. Right? There won't be Pages files, there won't be Numbers files, they'll all be Keynote files. So let me open up a document that I was working on. I'll just take this guy. And I also want to show you how you can insert things and how it looks with the file browser. So if I was to say, okay, I want to add a photo, I can add a photo or video, I can access the camera and so on, but if I click photo or video, it gives me all the photos and videos that are resident on my hard drive. On the other hand, if I choose insert from, I get a picker, and does this look familiar to you? Recents, shared documents, iCloud Drive, OneDrive, however you've set it up, it's exactly the way it was before. So if I've tagged stuff with artwork, for example, and I want to insert an image, I tap on artwork, and there's all the items that I've tagged, irrespective of where they lived. They can be on Google Drive, they can be on OneDrive, they can be on my external hard drive. So if I want to take, for example, this icon and insert it, select it, there we go. I can just insert that file into my presentation. By navigating my entire file structure, I don't have to previously import the file. As long as I know where it is, as long as I've tagged it properly, I can open up anything, whether it's in the file browser, whether it's in the insert menu command. I'm absolutely good to go. So that concludes my presentation, and I'm going to switch off file sharing and open it up to questions to see if anybody has any questions. Yeah, Carl.
Thanks, Alan. Alan, I'm interested just to hear your thoughts on the naming conventions. I find that I struggle with that and I just get lost.
You're asking the wrong guy. I'm appalling. I'm awful. I'm really bad at naming structures. You know, I know some people who are so good at it. You know, they'll give a file name and they'll put a date behind it and they'll put a file type or a month. I'm really not very good at that. Unfortunately, I wish I was, but I'm not. I can't give you advice. I would do a Google search and just on naming conventions. Yeah.
Okay.
For me, because I'm so bad at it, for me, search is my most useful tool. Search and tagging. You know, you can't tag everything, because if you tag everything, you end up as much tag. If you have multiple tags, you'll end up with as many tags as you have documents, and that's counterproductive as well. So I tend to have things like deadlines, artwork, you know, maybe people's names. So I just click on those and everything can consolidate. But yeah, if you find anything good, please share it with us, because I'd love to be better at it. But in this stage of my life, ain't gonna happen.
Okay. Thanks very much, Alan.
Kubis.
Alan, yeah, there was a chat earlier on the SMB.
Yeah.
And I've picked up on the answer on that. But could one use one's IP address as a storage space?
Are you talking about your Mac, for example?
Yeah.
Absolutely. So if you go onto your Mac and you turn on file sharing, it will give you the address. So yes, I see there's a couple of questions. So Sean, you asked, what's the purpose of SMB? Apple used to have their own protocol for file sharing. It used to be AFP, which was Apple File Protocol, but they've pretty much settled on the Windows file sharing format, which is called SMB. It's a very powerful format, and it supports additional information, like, you know, the metadata that you saw on the file, like whether it was a PDF, the data was created, and so on. So Apple have adopted SMB as their protocol. So when you go onto a website and you type in the address bar HTTP or HTTPS:// and the address, it will take you to that location. If you go in a web browser and you type SMB and type in the same address, if that destination is running a Windows server, you will literally be able to traverse the file structure of that computer using your file browser, using your web browser. So it's really just the protocol that we use. There are a whole bunch of them. Usually they're sitting in the background. FTP is an old file structure from the early days of the internet, predating the web. If you want to connect to screen sharing on your Mac, if you've got turned on, if you go to the connect to server menu in the Go menu in your Mac and you type VNC:/ and the address, that will start a file sharing session. So all it's really doing is telling the target computer, I'm requesting a session with you, but I'm not interested in the web, I'm interested in file sharing. I'm not interested in file sharing, I'm interested in the screen sharing service that you've got. And if that service is running, the appropriate service will respond. So very long way around answering your question. If you type SMB:/ and the IP address of your computer, it will log you on. Just as a caveat, actually, do you mind, guys, can I show you, would you like me to show you this on the screen? Because it is useful. Let me just start my screen sharing again. So if I go to my system preferences and I go to sharing, you can see that I've got file sharing turned on. And it actually tells you, Courbis, for other users to access shared items, they can type in smb:// and this is the IP address of my machine. Okay. However, your computer also has a name. And I shortened it from this long one. If you click edit over here, you could say courbis.local. Right. So what that will do is, because it's on a local network, it'll look for a machine called Courbis. This is constantly saying, yeah, I'm Courbis, and it'll just go around your network and it'll go, fine, let me log in. Now, here's the thing. File sharing by default, it's changing all the time. And Angela, I might stand to be corrected. But unless you go to options over here and don't turn that on, you will find that you'll get an error when you try to share. And then you can also choose which users are allowed to connect to the computer. So if I wanted to come on as a registered user and I don't set up any file sharing users on my computer, and I'll go to that in a second, I can say, yeah, shared via SMB, make sure it's me. And then when I try to connect to it, I have to put in my username and password as it exists on this computer. Now, one last thing. Let's say you're at home and you want to share certain files, maybe with your wife, with your children, a lodger, whoever's sitting there, but you don't want to expose the entire computer. When you go to users and groups, you know when you can create new users over here? Let me just unlock this and okay. If I create a new user, one of the user types you can create is sharing only. And what that does is it creates a user on your computer, but it doesn't set up a home folder for them. It's just an account that they would use to log in from another computer. Does that make sense? So I could set up an account for you. I could call it Courbis. I could give it a password. And then when it came to sharing files and folders, I could say, yeah, that's Courbis's folder. And but it would never make a home folder for you on my computer. It's just me giving you permission to access the computer and password protecting it. Courbis, I suspect you're the type of person that I could get tips on file naming conventions. You strike me as being a very structured gentleman.
No, I would plead the same as what you do.
Oh, really? Okay, okay. Sean, you had a question about SMB working with Linux servers. Absolutely. I've got a Raspberry Pi sitting in that desk at the desk behind me, which is in fact my Plex server. So once again, thanks very much, everybody, and we look forward to seeing you next week. Have a fantastic weekend.